We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Nick. So, according to Nick, we've said several times that you can find not too expensive Sony headphones in just about every recording studio. Mm-hmm. So even if you can afford $2,000 headphones, wouldn't using those Sonys actually give you better assurance that you're hearing things the way they were mastered and intended to be heard? That's a very good point. But let me counter that with something here, and that's this. When they are mastering audio, they want to know how. First of all, they want to master it so that it's as best as it possibly can be, but they also need to know how it's going to sound on a lot of people's systems.
Many different playback systems.
So what they do is they get they'll become a speaker or a headphone out there that is representative to them of what most people's systems sound like. And that system, while not necessarily as accurate and not necessarily as good, is very representative. So they're like, okay, I'm mastering this with these, great headphones and, fantastic speakers or whatever. Now I'm going to listen to it on this other system to see how it sounds when it's in somebody's house. Now I'm going to listen to it on these speakers, which is what it sounds like when it's in somebody's car. Now I'm going to listen on these headphones, which is what, most people are buying these days. Just so they know what it sounds like and they can make small adjustments if they need to. Does that mean that you want to buy all those speakers? No. No. They are certainly not intending that. They just want to make sure that the differences, the changes that they're making are either audible or don't distract from the overall quality because of inaccuracies within the typical system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mastering engineers are obsessed with what they call translatability.
Yeah.
Which is the ability to listen to what they are mastering on multiple different playback systems and still get what they deem to be the most important parts of that to come across. So, like, every recording studio also has a pair of Yamaha NS10 speakers, which are horrible speakers.
Not good.
But, like, on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, they're meant to, like, represent a clock radio, essentially. And they still want to be able to recognize their song and hear the most important parts on those. Does that mean you should go out and buy Yamaha NS10s? No! They're horrible. Yeah. But they're purposely horrible. Now, that's not
Yamaha,
a good analogy.
I was going to say, I don't think at Yamaha that they were purposely horrible. But
but they were, and everybody bought them. Because they're
still
a great
selling them today.
representation of horrible speakers. Now, that's a bad analogy to make for the Sonys, because the Sonys aren't bad headphones. And we're talking about the 7506s most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure how much mastering goes on using those headphones. When I say they're in every recording studio, I'm talking about the recording and mixing phase.
Right.
So if you watch behind-the-scenes videos, you'll see a ton of voiceover artists or singers as well wearing Sony headphones on their ear. They're wearing those 7506s while they're in the vocal booth. So that's what I mean, that they're ubiquitous. You find them almost there because they're very durable and they're very reliable, and they have a pretty darn neutral, even sound. So they're very inoffensive, would be a great way to put them. Now, if you bought some and you listen to them, I do think they're great. But does that mean they're the pinnacle of what the sound can be? No. Right. So that's the distinction.
He says on a recent Home Theater Geeks episode, they were talking about how headphones are all over the place in terms of frequency response. With so much variation, what are our thoughts on trying to find an accurate headphone sound? I think it's a really good idea. That's what I think an accurate headphone sound is. Now, does that make this easy? No. Okay. The headphone market right now is incredibly competitive.
Yes.
And it is incredibly saturated. It is so very hard to get yourself noticed. It is so hard. If you're not Beats by Dr. Dre, which people will buy just because it's a status symbol, then you really have to do something different to stand out. What's going to be that difference? Is it style? Maybe.
Mhm.
Is it sound? Probably not, but maybe. But it's got to be something. So a lot of times, this idea that there's so much variation out there is because either there's a lot of people not really concentrating on how things sound, more concentrating on how things look, so that they
Mhm.
can get more people to buy them based on that alone. But there's also a lot of people out there who are designing headphones, trying to give them as much boom and sizzle as possible, just
Yep.
so when you listen to them for the first couple seconds, you're like, "Wow, these are really loud. These.
I'm hearing details I've never heard before.
Oh,
That must be
so much
good.
bass. It was rattling my teeth."
Right.
Okay, yeah. So, but accurate sound in the end will win the day. I mean, I've got inaccurate headphones that I listen to all the time, and when I'm
Mhm.
listening to nothing but them, I think they sound pretty good. And then when I switch to something better, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's right. That's how that's supposed to sound. I remember now. But when I'm mowing the lawn and listening to Pandora, who cares what headphones
Right.
I'm using? If anything, God help me if I'm listening to something that's got a good high end and you listen to Pandora, because every hi hat sound just sounds like, tss,
Yeah. Yeah.
tss. Like, what is that sound? Is that a hi hat? Tss. Like, no. Is it air coming out of a balloon? Tss. No, not sure what that is. So right now we said it, according to our listener here, so we said it's not a bad time to buy a display. But when it comes to HDR projectors, is that really true? He's read reviews of HDR, Ultra HD Blu-ray movies comparing the viewing experience on an HDR OLED versus an HDR projector, and from these descriptions, those two experiences are widely different. So be
Mm.
wise to wait when it comes to HDR projectors. I would wait because they're super duper expensive right now.
Mm.
It's a pretty good time to buy. Flat panels right now are
Mhm.
insanely cheap compared to previous years, especially.
Even then, if you want the very best performance, you're going to be paying a fair amount for
Yeah,
some of the flagship models.
yeah,
So those will come down in price. There's no question. The level of performance of, say, a Sony X930E, right, which is a very nice looking HDR flat panel right now. Well, that level of performance will come down in price.
yeah.
Right now you're paying for it. So there's no, I mean, if you can wait, it's not going to hurt you to wait. But like the current JVCs that are out there right now, they're handling everything pretty darn well, and they're ready for HLG as well. So that's like the 570, 770, 970 models. But yeah, they're not exactly cheap. Epson's 5040 UB, $2,700, probably about the most affordable, but doesn't handle 4K 60 hertz. Isn't necessarily whether it'll handle HLG or not, still up in the air. But Epson's going to replace that with something, this coming November. So not a terrible idea to wait on that if you can. But if you got a 5040 UB, I'd say you're getting a very nice projector, especially for the money.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I mean, HDR is a different experience on a projector because it's a much bigger screen. So when you're talking about candela per square meter, which is what a nit means, a nit is a candela per square meter, you have many more square meters in a projector screen, which means that overall that number is going to be smaller.
Yeah.
So the experience of watching HDR on a flat panel is always going to be different from a projector. The projector is always going to look dimmer. But what was described in the one link that he sent actually sounds a heck of a lot like someone who bought one of the JVC projectors, like say a 550 or a 750 or a 950, and didn't know about the HDR calibration settings that JVC posted on their website.
Right.
Because what they described was everything looking too dark and shadow detail being lost, which is exactly what happens if you don't input the correct settings. That JVC admits they basically made a mistake in their out of the box settings for HDR with those models from a year and a half ago. They've corrected that in a new 570, 770 at L. Yeah, so that's what that sounded like to me. It sounded like incorrect settings.
There you go. So how will projectors handle Dolby Vision? If you're primarily going to use an HDR projector, are Ultra HD Blu-rays with Dolby Vision just a waste of money? Could Dolby eventually certify Dolby Vision projectors, making it possible to enter all the variables, screen size, ambient light, throw distance, etc., so that projector could calculate the correct tone mapping? I don't know.
So, I mean, the answer right now is projectors just don't handle Dolby Vision. Now, if you're saying, is it a waste to buy an Ultra HD Blu-ray that has Dolby Vision? Well, no, because it still has HDR10 as well.
Right.
And it's not like you have a choice. It's not like they charge you extra for the Dolby Vision version and you could opt to pay $2
If they thought they
less
could get
for
away
the
with it,
HDR10.
they would. But
Exactly.
they haven't yet.
They're if you're buying Despicable Me, there's the one Ultra HD version, and it has both HDR10 and Dolby Vision. So when you play it on your projector, you get HDR10. If you play it on a Vizio, or an LG OLED, you get Dolby Vision, right? So that's that situation. So it's not like you're missing out. I don't know if Dolby Vision's ever going to come to projectors. It's just, it is too many variables. What he's proposing is an interesting idea. Now, he even said in his email, it's probably going to be something that only a professional calibrator would have access to, and I agree with that, because that's too many variables for them to ever put it in the hands of end users and expect them to get all of that correct. I mean, they have Dolby Vision cinemas. That's their own cinema where they controlled every aspect of the thing, including the projector. So you get Dolby Vision in a cinema that way. But you'll notice you don't have Dolby Vision in anything other than a Dolby Vision cinema.
Yeah, right.
They don't let anybody else, not even IMAX gets to do it, right? So I think it's very unlikely that Dolby Vision will come to projectors. That's my prediction.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.